Here we go.
That's right, Joe. Here we go. It's Friday night. How you doing, my friend?
I am doing okay. How are you, sir?
Fantastic. We have got a packed ass show for you people here tonight. Episode 398. Odio. That's a play on Studio. Joe's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah. To be expected. It's BJ before Joe. Anyway, welcome to Scafuzery Inn, and let's get this show on the road, sir.
Sure. South to west, another gold. Oh, Sylvia. Yeah, she was a baddie. I think that's what the kids call them these days. She was a baddie.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Jack Taylor, what's up, buddy, with the silver. And Alpha 66, our friend Mike,
Big Mike.
with the bronze. Just got my new apartment last Saturday. Good for you, sir. Good for you.
Congratulate. Hold on. Oh, wrong one. Sorry. Congratulations, Mike. You now David Ferry in peace.
Yes, and are Rob and Joe, hi Tiny, going to confess their decision to retire from the world of podcasting to enroll in this seminary? Well, no, but is it forbidden to podcast if you're a priest?
No, but I was going to title this show, Joe, The Glory Hole Confessional, but I decided against it.
But your cover art was definitely great there with you and me with the little priest things, and of course I am Saint Joseph the Scafuza. So
Yes, and I am here to take your confession at all times of the day and night.
we can't do it on the pod, maybe members only. Claude and Aunt Udine, what up?
What up?
Let's see, we had Jess Cannell, Connell, I always say that wrong, in the comments section a couple hours ago, and we will be getting into another,
We may have found a distant relative, Joe.
of Jess's, of Miss Lucille Cannell. Connell.
Yes, we'll have to see if she's in Jess's family tree.
Yeah, that would be interesting if it was.
That would be cool.
Trey, what up, buddy? Howdy. Derek Schwinderman, what up? What up?
Schwinderman.
Tubes, evening, morning to you, sir.
Toop.
Sally, how are you?
Sally.
What up? What up?
Phallic symbol. What's up?
Yeah.
My favorite.
Let's see. Yeah, we're gonna get into a little of the mind control stuff, which has to do with RFK. Because I believe it is the anniversary tomorrow of his assassination, right, Rob?
Yes, I was joking with Derek earlier. He was asking me, and I said, "What are we going to mention RFK?" I said, "Not unless he bangs Sylvia Odio too." It was a joke. Yes, we will mention.
Roger, what up, buddy? How are you? We're jamming out to your intro in the beginning here. Mr. James Smith, how are you, sir? And Mike the Library Man, what up, what up?
Hi.
Evening. Good evening to all, and all a good evening. And to all a good evening.
Santa Mike.
Mr. Polinici, what up, what up? Not to be confused with Paula Jane.
That is true.
Bobby Thundernuts is in the house, too.
Hey, Bobby.
So I'm wondering, do you and Sally stream together or separately?
I would say different rooms of the house, same house.
Okay. Let us know. Mr. Scott Edwards, what up, bud? How are you?
Hello, Scott.
Eula Cadulia.
You licky beluga.
Good evening to you, sir. And yeah, I think that is it as of now. And yeah, why don't you set the table, sir?
Wait a minute. Hold on.
Did I miss anything?
Mike says, Rob, why are you always reading the classified ads on the cover art? Am I? Hold on. Let me look again. Oh, those are classified files,
Oh, okay.
not classified ads. If it is classified ads, it's Craigslist for all your needs. But no, on a more serious tip here, yes, it is the 58th anniversary of the Bobby Kennedy assassination this weekend, tomorrow, in fact. And I gave Joe an assignment. Recently, I watched a television program on the television on, I think it's on Discovery Channel, but I watched it on HBO Max.
Me too.
And of course, it's a show done by a very suspect former CIA operator.
Yes,
Not,
Bustamante,
not,
right?
not Kiriakou, but Andrew Bustamante,
Yeah.
who I'm coming around on, but I do realize there's still problems with him. But
Yes.
um, the first episode of his new show, is called Conspiracies and Cover-Ups. And the first episode examines whether or not somebody, in this case, a very world-renowned hypnotist, could create a mind control assassin. So they go through the various steps of setting this up. And the first one is they put on a free show and
Right.
invite, like 50 people from the public come and they sit in the show. And he goes through a basic, one of those hypnosis shows where, people come up on stage and they act like a chicken or whatever, whatever dumb shit they got going on there. But the whole point of this is to find someone who is highly suggestible.
Right.
Yeah, because hypnosis doesn't work on everybody for whatever reason. And some people are more susceptible to hypnosis than others. So through this series of these shows, they whittle it down to this one guy. And he's a young black dude with dreads, very intelligent, very nice, very soft-spoken dude. And once they find that he's the guy, they then go ahead and set up the experiment. And they basically rent out this coffee shop for the evening, and they invite back some of the other people who had been at the previous show, but him in particular. And everybody in the coffee shop is in on the trick, if you will, except for this guy. And he basically has 20 or 30 minutes to work with this guy, Joe,
I believe it's about that. Yeah.
before they go into doing, trying to pull this thing off. And the thing that they're trying to convince this guy to do is to poison Andrew Bustamante's water. Okay, so while he's suggestible, while he's under hypnosis, this guy's programming him for like 20 or 30 minutes, telling him you're going to do this. And he gives him a vial of poison, if you will, and he puts it in his pocket. And, he tells him, when you hear this sound or whatever, you're going to get up, you're going to walk over there, you're going to pour this in his coffee, and then you're going to come back to your table, and you're going to sit here like nothing happened. And, you're not going to remember doing it. You're not going to remember anything from this point to this point, blah, 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 blah. So they go through all the steps of setting this whole thing up. And then it's time to do it, right? So you see Andrew Bustamante, he gets something from his table, and he walks over to order a coffee, and he leaves a water glass on the table that he got up from. And then there's a noise, right? And that's his cue. So this guy gets up, he walks over to the table, pulls out this little vial of stuff and pours it in Andrew Bustamante's water, puts the cap back on, puts it back in his pocket, goes back and sit down at the desk. And then Andrew comes back with his coffee and he sets it down and he takes a sip of water. And then he goes through this whole thing like he's dying, right? And he falls out on the floor and like everybody's there's panicking, like call 911, blah. And he's like fishing out on the floor and everything. The guys watching all this, like, what the fuck is going on, right?
I love that term, fishing out.
Yeah. And so, all this craziness is going on, and the hypnotist comes over and he like puts him under again. And they get Andrew up and they get everybody else out of there and they bring him back to reality. And then they start to tell him, they ask him, do you remember, doing anything? He's like, no, I just looked up and this guy's, dying or whatever, And they're telling him, look, we hypnotized you, and they tell him what they did. And he's like, I don't remember any of that. So they bring him in the back and they showed him the video footage of him doing it. And he's watching himself going like, obviously I see that to me, but I don't remember doing any of this. So imagine if they can condition someone in 20 or 30 minutes. Now I understand there's various steps to find a susceptible person, but if that person could be programmed in 20 or 30 minutes to murder somebody and not remember anything about it, imagine what you could do programming someone over the course of days and months leading up to an event. Much like Sirhan, I believe, was hypnotized to do what he did there. Basically create, be there, be at this place at a certain time, and on these various cues, do certain things, pull this gun out, start firing, blah, 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 blah. Basically creating a diversion for the real murderer to be behind and to the right of Bobby Kennedy. Hello, Dane Eugene Caesar. And then, he's the one arrested for the crime and doesn't remember a thing about it.
Right.
And he's still sitting in jail 58 years later.
Yeah. And still says that he has no memory of that.
Yeah.
Of those events. Yeah.
So what do you think, Joe, after watching that show? What are your thoughts about it? And what do you think is possible now? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I think I thought it was very interesting and fascinating. I think their methods have probably improved multiple fold by then.
like I said, the more time you have with somebody, like if they're coming to see like their psychiatrist or whatever, and you have them for an hour, at a time, maybe once or twice a week, to plant those seeds and to sow, those, to work the method, work it through, and really ingrain it in this person's head, and really be able to work with them. Like, it's crazy.
I think it's very possible. And then you look at someone like Sirhan, who I believe suffered a head or brain injury while falling off a horse, right? Maybe he was the perfect type of candidate for that. They probably didn't have to do a focus group like as portrayed in the episode type of thing.
If you talk to a psychiatrist and you kind of lay it out, an MK Ultra psychiatrist, and kind of lay it out like, we're looking for a really unassuming, someone that's very susceptible, somebody that's very naive, type
certain attributes, right?
Right. Maybe a foreigner, maybe that was one of them too. Somebody that's really maybe a little schizophrenic. Who knows what the criteria would be, but
right. I think it would definitely be possible, and then when you consider, the advancement in prescription drugs these days, probably makes it even more possible, right?
Yeah. But again, not needed, really.
Right. But it could advance maybe the process or the psychosis or whatever, right?
It might make somebody more susceptible,
right?
If they're not already susceptible. Yeah.
Correct. So you already have someone that's susceptible, and then you kind of increase, increase it a little bit. I think they opened up with Thomas Crooks, right?
Yeah, they were trying to they were contemplating that theory that Crooks had been programmed, to be there as a distraction.
Yeah. And, of course, not much has been released on him. And he was at the gun range where a lot of federales were. I'm just using that term.
They were saying like a year before this all went down with Trump and him that he kind of mentally changed. He kind of withdrew from friends and family and got weird on social media and did a 180 in his politics and things like that, and his
Right.
ideology changed. And
Yeah. And I mean, we don't know much about him, and we're not going to go into a big kind of diatribe about him, but you could see how certain loners and certain people could be susceptible to this. And I'm not sure exactly who was. There are different differentiating accounts of his social media presence. They said that he didn't have any, then allegedly he did, and whatever. But I think it's, I think they've probably really perfected the method of doing that at this point, like much more than Sirhan. Because you
yeah,
think, what, 60 years ago, 58? Um,
people hear that theory and it's like, yeah, okay, whatever. He hypnotized him to do all this, whatever. But if you really look at it, man, it's possible. It is certainly possible. And like, could you imagine if something like that ever happened to you and you did something and you legitimately don't remember doing it, but you're on video doing it? Like, you're
I,
screwed.
yeah, I think I'd be a good suspect, actually. Candidate for that type of
Yeah.
control. But yeah, no, it's crazy to consider, and how we're gonna weave back into all this is a certain psychiatrist that was involved with Sylvia Odio that might have been doing some of the same stuff, and Sylvia Odio did have some psychological issues. Let's face it. She allegedly blacked out on the 22nd after seeing Oswald on TV and blah blah blah. So
Yeah.
that,
And how did we get here? Well,
how did we get here? It's a good question.
I, oftentimes when it comes to this case, I always wonder myself with these things that are ingrained so deeply into the mythology of the Kennedy assassination, such as the Odio incident. A lot of people take it at face value that this is something that really happened. But what if it wasn't? What if this was some twisted fragment of Sylvia's imagination? And that's not too far off the beaten path once you see what we have found out about Sylvia Odio. And everything's just not cut and dry with this whole thing in her. And there's a lot of confusery going on here with people around Sylvia Odio.
A lot.
A lot.
She's a rich girl. She has contacts and a lot of people, including Johnny Martin and you know even people like Augustine Guitart. Like there's a lot of, for some reason, and I'm not exactly sure. There's a lot of focus on her and a little bit of her sister as well, Sarita.
Yeah. Now this is the book that I did the book review on this week. The Kennedy Nipples. I mean
Mm-hmm.
Ripples.
Nipples.
A True Love Story. Right, by Mary Ann Sullivan. And you read a book like this, and it's like, whew, I mean, it's spicy, bro. It's spicy. Uh, and Father McCann was a poon hound
Yeah.
for whatever reason. And in 1962, Father McCann was working with the Cuban Catholic committees,
Yeah. Another one of those
part of the
groups.
part of the Catholic Relief Services, that had a fund for Cubans in Dallas to furnish them with them relief, uh, help with money, finding jobs, and basically helping them resettle into Dallas, Cuban exiles.
Right.
But it was a Cuban Catholic charity committee that I think at some point Kennedy had even set this thing up to help.
Right. Of course, Kennedy, the first Catholic president.
Yeah. So Father McCann was a very handsome man, apparently. Um, I've seen a couple photos of him here and there. I'm trying to remember if there's one in this book because I mean this dude did it for Marianne. I mean, she took one look at this guy and yeah, she got really moist, if you know what
Right.
I'm saying.
Yeah. And
So
apparently there was some kind of rivalry between Marianne and Sylvia Odio in
so
terms of.
this is Father McCann.
Good. Thank you for finding that. And you know what, Rob? One thing
This is
that.
Marianne.
Okay. She definitely has that 60 hairdo. And one thing, Rob, that I always assumed that is obviously wrong, that I learned about as for prepping for this week, is I always thought Father McCann was old. Because how do you get that name with the? I mean, I get it. You're a priest,
He
but
was
at
26.
26, exactly.
Yeah, he had urges.
I
Apparently.
did not realize that, and that makes him being kind of a coon hound or whatever you want to call
It's
it.
a poon hound, not a coon hound.
Coon hound
Poon hound.
makes it a little more understandable to me. But I did not realize that. I thought he was always like a 40, 50-year old type of guy. No, not at all.
No, young buck. And so you have Sylvia Odio coming to Dallas, I believe somewhere in the spring of 63. And this is approximately, it's about the same time that he met this Marianne Sullivan chick, uh, that he met Sylvia Odio. And they both took a liking to Mr. McCann, Father McCann there, right? And as you mentioned, Joe, Marianne was very jealous of Father McCann paying any attention to Sylvia Odio.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get there, I promise. So let's set the table here, Joe, with some of the. I mean, we all know the whole backstory with the Odio incident, where she claimed after the assassination that three men came to visit her apartment in Dallas, and one of them claimed to be Leon, or she was told that his name was Leon Oswald, and that he was crazy enough to kill Kennedy. And these two Mexicans or greasy looking Latinos were
Mm-hmm.
named Angelo and Leopoldo.
Right.
And again, it was assumed or suspected by these three people could have been Lauren Hall, Lawrence Howard, and William Seymour.
Mm-hmm.
Lauren Hall admitted to it at first and realized he was mistaken, that they hadn't actually went there.
And backtracked. Right.
And we'll tell you where he did go as the show goes on. And you know, Howard never admitted to meeting Odio, and neither did Seymour. So, despite what Corey Hughes has to say, that this case was solved 50 years ago, and you know, if you take the time to actually look at documents and do a little research, Corey, you'll see that not necessarily the case, bro. It was solved 50 years ago, but you can still believe in your fairy tales and, you know, 60-year-old evidence has been debunked over time. But that is why this show is not called Bloody History. So, Joe, get us started here, buddy.
All right. Put it up, sir. Put it up. Get it up. Like McCann did.
Oh, you mean the screen?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Sorry, I have to specify.
Getting ready to scare women with small children.
We're really gonna get banned now from YouTube.
Okay, you're up, Joe.
And, yeah, and this is a Secret Service document to Mr. Lee Rankin in May. I'm sorry, of 1964. Commission Exhibit number 2943. And it is small here. I'm going to read it on my other laptop just to make it easier for me. Dear Mr. Rankin, reference is made to your letter of April 22nd, 64. Reverend Walter J. McCann was interviewed April 30th, 1964, by Inspector Kelly of the Secret Service. He is a 26-year-old priest presently attending Loyola University in New Orleans and is a lifelong resident of Dallas, Texas.
All right, let me stop you right there real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So immediately after the assassination, within a week, Father McCann moves to New Orleans, of all places, to attend Loyola University, where he will befriend Sylvia Odio's uncle, a guy by the name of Augustin Guittard, who attended the court date when Oswald was there for the fracas.
Yes.
Right. Yes.
Yes, which is very sus. We've heard David Boylan talk about Augustine Guittard. He's definitely someone that is in his interest, and definitely someone who's sus for sure. Sylvia Odio's uncle, correct?
Yeah, he's portrayed as an older gentleman who is a college professor, well educated. But again, that whole bunch of dudes that were attending that court date with Oswald had some CI ties in some way.
Yeah.
So
I,
why shouldn't Augustine Guittard?
right. I don't think any of them didn't have either FBI or CIA ties in terms of being an informant or even agents in some circumstances. So yeah, that's a problem, as we like to say here.
Yeah.
He spent a number of summer vacations in Mexico and has a fair command of the Spanish language and has acted as the chaplain of the Cuban Catholic Committee of Dallas since 1961. The committee
Again, real quick, if you're checking off suspicious boxes at home, there's another one.
Yeah.
Vacation in Mexico.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're following along at home, your boxes are filled, pun intended. The committee contacted employees in an attempt to find places for Cubans to work, like you mentioned. It organized religious and social functions in order to make Dallas a friendly place for the Cubans who were sent there. In 1961, the organization had no funds and solicited funds among the people of Dallas. In March 62, the Cuban Catholic Committees held a meeting in Miami, which Father McCann attended. At that time, the Catholic Relief Service.
Another box you can check off, folks.
Yeah, right, jam leaf. At that time, the Catholic Relief Service set up a revolving fund for the Cubans in Dallas to furnish them relief until jobs could be found for them. A resettlement office was opened in Dallas, and Father McCann was given the responsibility for the conduct of the office. So he's kind of dishing out funds, right?
Yeah, he's helping. Yeah, he's distributing funds. Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to skip a sentence. Father McCann stated that he never attended any of the political meetings of the Cuban groups that were represented by the Cubans in Dallas, although he often cajoled and entreated to attend them. So he said he wasn't political, but he did attend them? Is that what that says?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's pretty much full of shit. Got it. He felt that it was a better policy for him to remain aloof from the differences of opinion that occurred among the various Cuban groups represented by the Cuban population.
Basically, he wanted to pretend like he was a fence sitter like Joe and agree with both sides of the aisle so as not to appear in bad favor with one or the other.
Yes, I am the fence sitter. Father McCann stated that during his work with the committee, he came to know Mrs. Cannell.
Mrs. Jess Cannell. No, I'm
Yeah,
just kidding.
yeah, no, we're kidding, Jess.
Lucy.
But if you do have any relation, let us know.
Yes.
Who was interested in assisting in the work of the committee and who was especially interested in the welfare of Mrs. Sylvia Odio in view of Mrs. Odio's mental condition. Here
Now
we go.
let me stop you again.
Okay, please do.
You know, when you're talking about this type of person who takes an interest in someone else heavily when there's no really real reason to, you're often reminded of people like Ruth Payne
Right,
or some other various type of babysitter, if you will.
right.
So check that box,
Yeah.
Mrs. Lucille Connell.
Yes, we will get into one of her interviews, believe, in the next few slides after we get through this. He acknowledges knowing a few Scafuzas, Hesker Izquierdo, which I know Boylan has mentioned, all of whom he met during his work with the Cuban Catholic Committee. He also acknowledges knowing Colonel and Mrs. Castor. He said Colonel Castor is a retired Army colonel.
Okay, let's check another box there, Joe. When we're talking about retired Army colonels and generals and being around this whole Cuban exiles, Kennedy assassination thing, there's another box you can check.
Mrs. Castor seemed generally interested in the plight of the Cuban refugees, but that he always felt that Colonel Castor was, quote, playing the role of an intelligence officer, end quote, in his contacts with the Cubans.
Check that box too.
How many boxes? Is anyone checking their boxes at home? Do we know how many boxes we have
We're
now?
keeping a running tab over here at the Lone Gummy Podcast. Boxes checked. Not done yet.
That he seems to be more interested in their political beliefs than their economic plight or their social programs in the new country. Now we are going to get to a J. Martin, Rob, who we have covered before, although granted it was almost 3 years ago. He stated that he was introduced to John, also known as Juan or Johnny Martin, whom he described as a Latin but not a Cuban. I believe alleged to be from Uruguay, right, Rob?
Uruguayan.
Uruguayan. He stated that Mr. Martin came to Mrs. Sylvia Odio's apartment one evening while he was there. So
now this is Father McCann saying all this.
So Father McCann was there, and he says Martin came to visit Miss Sylvia Odio.
Yeah, he didn't stay long. So maybe Father McCann was taking a little confession from Sylvia Odio that night.
Mr. Martin did not stay very long after he left Mrs. Odio, stating that Mr. Martin represented a Cuban group or was doing a job for a Cuban group in Dallas. And I believe, Rob, he owned a laundromat.
Yes, washateria.
Yes, allegedly.
Lavanderia.
Father McCann was under the impression that Martin had an apartment or a house in Dallas, but that he did not live in Dallas and had a family in some other city. He stated that this was his only contact with Martin, but that Martin was apparently well known to Mrs. Odio.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you have a lot of people hovering around the Odios and the Odio sisters.
Yes. And again, if you're playing at home, here's contact with not just any J. Martin, but a Johnny, Juan Martin. So you can check those 4 boxes off of the list as well.
Bingo. Father McCann said that while he was interested in the Cuban groups in Dallas, he was contacted about 4 or 5 times by the Wallace Heitman of the Dallas office of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Of course, Heitman is a name that comes up a lot in a lot of the post documents on the FBI, right? Wallace, I'm not so sure about, but I believe I recognize his name as well. He first made a contact with Heitman when it came to his attention that one of these Cuban refugees was extorting money from some other Cubans, was making false promises to the Cubans, was a disruptive influence in the Cuban community, and was considered by Father McCann to be a, quote, political Cuban, end quote, rather than a Cuban that was interested in receiving any assistance from the committee. This would be the Cuban Catholic Committee, right? So again, when we talk about all these Cuban groups kind of having these little rivalries, right, which we've talked about a lot this past year, this kind of lines up with that, right, Rob?
Yeah.
He cannot recall the name of this Cuban, but he believes the Cuban is still employed at Parkland Hospital.
All right, let me stop you right there real quick.
Stop me.
Okay. Parkland Hospital. Check that box. But also,
There is a check after Parkland, ironically. There's a lot of checks on these.
yeah. So approximately 6 weeks before the assassination, approximately the same time that Lee Harvey Oswald got his job at the school book depository around the middle of October, Father McCann disappears mysteriously. And nobody knows where he is or what he's doing or anything. He shows up at Parkland Hospital a week. Well, I don't know how long he was there, but I guess they call his mother and tell her finally, hey, look, we have your son here in the psych ward at Parkland Hospital, babbling incoherently, disheveled, possibly experiencing a mental breakdown, possibly on drugs, whatever the case is. We don't know exactly, but that he was released from Parkland Hospital to the care of his mother a week before the assassination. And then remember, shortly after the assassination, he decides to just move to New Orleans and start going to Loyola University, which is weird.
Yeah, because that's what you usually do when you leave a psych ward, right? You go to university.
Right. And decide, suddenly leave the priesthood and decide to become a university student.
Yeah.
So take that for what it's worth.
And you have, Heitman had with him were drop-in visits. When Heitman was in the vicinity of the Lakewood building in Dallas, Heitman would stop and ask whether he knew of the existence of a certain Cuban group. He always cooperated to the best of his ability with the FBI agents.
So now,
this is
box off. FBI informant, Father McCann, FBI informant, check that box off.
Yes. And ironically, there's a check through FBI agents on this document. Man. When asked concerning his knowledge of the Jure group, check, among the Cubans, he stated he knew very little about the various Cuban groups, such as Jure, the Student Revolutionary Directive, CRC, or the Segundo Fronte del Escambade.
You don't need to read all this horse shit, Joe. Just kind of skip through and hit the high points.
Okay. He denied knowing anything about Lee Harvey Oswald prior to November 22nd. He stated that sometime in December 63, Sylvia Odio informed him that a group of Cubans had brought to her apartment. Oswald to her apartment. She told him she discussed this matter fully with FBI agents early in December. Subsequent to his living in New Orleans, Sylvia Odio had written a letter to him, which she again stated that she had discussed her meeting of Oswald with government officials. Father McCann was not certain whether she meant she had another discussion with the FBI or whether she had talked to someone else about the subject. Father McCann felt that Sylvia Odio's aggravated mental condition since November 22nd was caused by her concern that the Cuban community might become involved in some way with the assassination in view of their association with Oswald shortly before the assassination. Now that's an interesting last part of the sentence there, right?
Yeah.
She fainted.
She had been talking to her uncle, possibly.
Yeah, she fainted at her employment when she learned of the assassination of President Kennedy and the arrest of Oswald. However, he stated McCann that she is inclined to be highly dramatic and she may be building up her belief in an association with Oswald out of all proportion to what it was, if in fact there was any. He,
Again, this is a very important observation by Father McCann. He's basically saying that he doesn't believe her when it comes to Oswald visiting the apartment. But
right, but and of course, the issue with Oswald visiting the apartment was he was supposed to be in Mexico City. It caused a bunch of problems for the Warren Commission. We all know this. But let me ask you this, Rob. Do you think Father McCann would have kind of been on the side of the exiles, even though he claims not to be political, whatever, and maybe tried to get them out of the way in a sense?
well, just to briefly divert from the document there while we pontificate here. Uh, I don't know what to make of Father McCann. I mean, to me, he's got all the earmarks of some kind of intelligence guy posing as a Catholic priest. Now, he might have legitimately been a Catholic priest, but not like David Ferrier's made up religion Catholic priest. Like, he might have been legit, but considering his actions and his propensity for young Latina women, if you will, uh, and the various places that he pops up and the things that happen to him scream to me that he's some kind of intelligence asset
I would agree.
being moved around. Uh, I mean, we just read he's an FBI informant, um,
Yeah.
and
They
he's in.
didn't,
He's
they
in.
didn't say it, but they pretty much said it.
I mean, think about it for a second. He's in the perfect position to know a lot about the Cuban exile community. He's basically rehousing them, resettling them. He knows where they live. He knows where they meet. He's been to the meetings. He knows what they talk about. He probably knows the sus ones. I mean, he's a priest, so he's taking confessions from them. I mean, he knows all kinds of shit about them.
Hmm.
What better? Who better to use as an asset for intelligence than this guy?
Right. Right. And I believe, Rob, he was at a couple meetings at the Harlandale House.
Yeah,
I read it. I'm not sure if I have the document, but I
another
read it
J.
somewhere.
Martin, Jorge
Yeah.
Martinez.
Jorge Martin Salazar, yes. Um, let's see. Um, he believed that any association with Oswald was extremely limited and confined to the one instance in which Oswald is alleged to have visited her home with a group from the jury. So this kind of is like goes against the other statements, does it not?
Yeah, like I said, dude, it sounds to me like he doesn't believe her. Like, look, Sylvia Odio has some serious mental problems, as we'll see as this story progresses. And it's not out of the realm of possibility that if he knows her as well as I think he knows her,
Right? He's hitting it,
yeah,
which means you know her pretty well.
then he would he would know kind of when she's being dramatic and making shit up, right?
Hmm.
Again, you have to look at these things through the lens of, these things are so ingrained in the JFK assassination lore, we take it for granted that this shit actually happened. But what if it didn't?
Yeah.
Does it shed any new light on things? And that's what we're trying to figure out here tonight. So
Yeah. McCann denied ever having a discussion with Sylvia Odio as to the identity of this group and denied ever hearing the name Leopoldo mentioned other than in connection with this visit. He did state, however, that it's inconceivable that Oswald was brought to Odio and introduced by her by anyone from the jury other than someone well known to her.
Inconceivable.
Impossible. Yes. He said a man by the name of Alentada, Alentada, who was said to be the representative for the jury group in Dallas, would know who is active in this group. Alentada is said to be a certified public accountant, CPA, in Dallas, and frequently came to Miss Odio looking for help for jury. And I don't really doubt that, because her family was pretty wealthy, but who the hell knows, again?
Yeah, if her family's wealthy, she's a nut job. Probably easy to get money out of her if she has access to it.
Nutjob baddie, man, they're hard to steer clear of. Odio is described as 26 years old of age, so the same age as Father McCann, who now lives with her 3 small children. She popped out a few, and her sister Sarita, in West Lovers Lane, ironically, Dallas, Texas.
And let me point out real quick. So Sylvia Odio, at the ripe young age of 26, had already had 4 kids. All right, by the time she's 26, which means she is not averse to doing the deed, right? Apparently, she had left her children in Puerto Rico.
Right, which is where she immigrated from.
Yep. And then I guess they came once she got settled, because a week after the supposed Odio incident, actually the weekend after the supposed Odio incident, she moved to a different apartment. And that's why she said she remembered, allegedly, when Oswald and these 2 other guys showed up, because they were packing up and getting ready to move. And they moved that weekend. So they had to visit. It was either Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday night, type of thing.
Right.
So I'm guessing her kids came after she got into her new apartment. I guess she sent for the kids to be sent to her.
Right. Later. Right.
But for those 6 months while she's in Dallas, she did not have her kids.
Interesting. So she was a bachelorette, if you will.
Yes.
Another sister, Annie Laurie Odio, single, 18 years of age. I bet she was a baddie as well. Is now living in Miami. Father McCann says he did not know Sylvia Odio prior to March 63 when she came to Dallas from Puerto Rico, but that he knew her sister Sarita in connection with the Cuban Relief Committee, and that he also knew her younger sister, Annie Laurie. So he knows the whole family, bro. He knows all the sisters, who was attending school in Dallas prior to Mrs. Odio's arrival.
I bet he does know them all.
Yeah.
Very intimately.
Yeah, well, it's in the report. He stated that when Mrs. Odio arrived in Dallas, although she was ill for the first few months, probably mentally, she made the acquaintance of persons like Mrs. Connell, who introduced her to some very prominent people in Dallas. None of these people assisted Mrs. Odio financially, and the family at that time was supported by the funds furnished by the Catholic Cuban Committee and by selling some of the possessions they had brought with them from Puerto Rico, such as gold coins, jewelry, etc. They were living a very meager existence, and when the children arrived from Puerto Rico, so you're right, Rob, they arrived after, there was a real strain on their financial resources. Yeah, so you have a lot of mouths to feed. Their situation was complicated by Mrs. Odio's mental condition, which required psychotherapy periodically.
And real quick, let me jump in here, Joe.
Yeah.
So, going back a little bit to when she first arrived in Dallas, like I said, I think it was March 63.
Yeah.
curiously enough, and pull your bingo cards out here, people. So, on Wednesday, April the 10th, 1963, Sylvia and her sisters went to the movies, Joe.
What was April the 10th, Rob?
Well, in the middle of the movie, suddenly Sylvia Odio stands up, walks out. They thought she was going to the bathroom, but she never came back. So, of course, this would be a little alarming to the other sisters, who enlisted the help of the police to try to locate her because they couldn't find her, and she didn't drive. So they finally found Sylvia Odio wandering around Turtle Creek Boulevard in the vicinity of General Walker's house on April 10th, 1963, which just happens to be, Joe,
It just happens to be.
the same day that somebody took a shot at General Walker
Somebody.
on Turtle Creek Boulevard. So you can check those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many boxes there's to check there. Check them.
I think we're at like a dozen by now.
Yeah.
But that is really interesting. Really interesting. And I'm not saying she had any involvement in that or whatever, but it's the coincidence of that is troubling to me.
Yeah. There's a whole lot to this story that's troubling to me.
Yeah. So Father McCann was requested to call Mrs. Odio in an attempt to secure her from the name of the jury representative who accompanied Oswald. He agreed to place the call, stating that if he could not induce her to tell him who the people were, he could induce her. Again, Rob, interesting wording here. He could induce her to tell it to the proper authorities. He said Sylvia Odio would be reluctant to give any information which might compromise her position among the Cuban exiles, or which would result in the Cubans being embarrassed or in any way connected with the assassination. This, of course, is not quite consistent with her informing others in December that Oswald was brought to her by members of the JOEB.
Yeah. Now, see, if you're a conspiracy theorist here and you're thinking in your conspiratorial mind, okay, this thing, basically, which was not an uncommon thing, according to Father McCann, that some of these Cuban exiles would visit wealthy, well-off Cubans in an attempt to secure funds for the movement, right?
Right.
Now, of course, her parents are in jail, okay? So she doesn't have access to the funds, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's living a very meager existence in Dallas, which adds to her stress levels of her psychopathy, right?
Right.
But these Cuban exiles don't know that. They know that, hey, this chick had money, this family had money, they owned all the railroads in Cuba. Bitch, you got the money. No, I don't. Yeah, you do. No, I don't. Yeah, you do. But I think that Father McCann is right here by saying that Sylvia Odio would not ever reveal who the names of these people who came to see her was, because she probably knows who they were, but wouldn't reveal it because she didn't want to implicate or embarrass any of the Cuban exiles and have something come back on her. I mean, she has 4 young children. She doesn't want to get roped into all this shit. She doesn't want to be hunted down and killed for telling the FBI who came to visit her. And I think this whole Oswald or Leon Oswald being with these 2 guys is the figmenting part of her imagination, right?
It very well could be.
That's just my take.
It very well could be, sir. Father McCann stated that it was the duty of every citizen to cooperate to the full extent in the President's Commission's investigation. Yes, sure. And that he felt he was bound in conscience to give whatever assistance he could. Yes, he's a godly man. He said he did not feel he was violating the confidence in giving any information previously given, since he had been informed by Mrs. Odio that she had discussed this information with the proper authorities. He did not realize at the time that she had not made a full and frank disclosure of the names of the people who brought Oswald to her. So this is kind of a long letter. I think we only have one page left. Father McCann said he did not feel he could call Mrs. Odio in the presence of Inspector Kelly, right, of the Secret Service, and he would prefer to talk to her privately. Again, Rob, check off another box here with that sentence.
Yeah, restricting the flow of information.
Yes. And you're talking about FBI to Secret Service. And of course, we've gone on and on about interagency conflict and covering your ass and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it's a problem. It was agreed that he would call Mrs. Odio shortly after 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, April 30th, and he was furnished the necessary funds to make the call. Upon his return to Inspector Kelly's room about 7:30 p.m., he said he had made the call to Mrs. Odio in Dallas and that she was very anxious to discuss the entire matter. I'm sure she was. That's sarcastically. She advised him, and this is kind of in brackets here, she advised him the only information she could provide on the people who visited her was that one of them said he was using the code name of Leopoldo, which I believe, Rob, is like a Cuban war name, right? Or whatever it is. That the second man she could identify as Eugenio Cisneros, and the third man was introduced to her as Leon. She said Leon did not use the name of Oswald in her presence, but that she recognized him after November 22nd as being the same man who was arrested for the assassination of President Kennedy. She further described the men as being, quote, greasy-looking Cubans, more like Mexicans than Cubans, although they did not have Mexican accents, end quote. She stated that they were members of JOEB and they had a letter in Spanish which they wished her to translate into English for the purpose of sending copies of this letter to the United States companies to secure funds for their cause. She further stated that in the course of the conversation, the man she now identifies as Oswald spoke, quote, a couple of words in Spanish, and further that the others informed her that they were going to make a trip. These men did not enter her apartment or sit down. She said she was a little afraid of them since she did not know them, although they used the underground code word names of her father and mother and seemed very familiar with her family and conditions in Cuba. Her 18-year-old baddie sister, Annie Laurie, who is now in Miami, was babysitting with Mrs. Odio's children that evening. Mrs. Odio was ready to go out, and she never did ask the visitors to sit down. The entire conversation she had with them in the doorway of her apartment at the Crestwood Apartments. She is not able to fix the date any better than sometime in September of 1963. So the date isn't even really confirmed.
Right. And she describes them as being greasy looking Cubans, more like Mexicans, although they did not have Mexican accents. So if you're a young girl, a young lady living in an apartment with your other sisters and their kids, are you going to invite three greasy looking Cubans into your apartment to talk to them?
I wouldn't, especially if they're asking for money.
Right. But then she says, well, then the story changes and said she never, she said she never did ask the visitors to sit down. The entire conversation she had with them was in the doorway of her apartment.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently she did not let them in.
Right. It's
Yeah.
weird, man. This whole thing is weird.
The name Eugenio Cisneros. So file that away, folks.
Yes. Mrs. Odio said she refused to assist them in their project of translating the letter, which I believe, if it was Hall and Howard, they would have been able to translate that. No.
They wouldn't have needed to, I wouldn't think, and they wouldn't have claimed to be affiliated with Jure either if it was Hall and Howard. And no, Corey, it was not Hall and Howard.
So did they just like name drop Jure to try to get some funds, not
Well,
knowing
probably.
that, not knowing that maybe she didn't have access to the funds, type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that their organization, like all the other Cuban exile organizations, they stemmed out of Miami, and they had little fingerlings, all across the United States, and these, higher concentrated Cuban refugee communities. And the jury wasn't anything huge or special or anything like that. It was one of the more tame Cuban
Obs-
exile groups, if you will.
obscure, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so again, they might have had some information maybe trickling down out of Miami. Like, hey, go talk to this
Second
lady.
hand, yeah.
Her parents are loaded. See if we can get some money for out of her or whatever. And look, these guys weren't doing anything special. They were doing the same thing that Lauren Hall, Lawrence Howard, uh, Jerry Hemming were all doing, and going around to the big fat cats and trying to raise money for the cause to
Hmm.
overthrow Castro. And it's a grift. It's a grift, folks.
Yeah, it's all a grift with these guys, and
Never any intentions of putting that money towards, buying a boat or buying weapons or whatever. It's just, it's a grift.
I think some groups did have that, but I think majority of them didn't. There were differentiating levels of motivation in a sense, right?
Yeah, and real operators. You have these people who were collectors. They went around and collected money, but never did shit.
Hmm.
Like you never saw Lauren Hall hop on a boat and go to Cuba and with a gun and try to kill anybody. I mean,
Right,
yes, he was in a prison there, and he probably wasn't in any hurry to go back in a Cuban prison. Um,
right. Trisconia,
he
yes.
also probably didn't have a death wish either. So, people like him, I
I don't think Lawrence Howard. I don't. Do we know about Lawrence Howard having any?
well, he was part of Interpen with Jerry Hemming originally, and even the group Interpen. I mean, when you're thinking about all them dudes, what did they really do?
Right,
They didn't do shit. They put on airs. They showed face. They pretended like they were training in No Name Key and always tried to get a boat, but somehow, the Yankees always thwarted their efforts somehow.
right.
Almost like they had an informant in the group.
Yeah,
Gee,
for sure.
imagine that.
Yes.
Um, but then you have different levels of operators, like guys like oh, Felipe Vidal Santiago, a
Yeah.
guy you don't hear about much doing shit in the United States, but this guy was actually going out on boats and walking the walk and talking the talk. He did go to speak to General Walker apparently right
Yeah.
before the assassination to try to raise funds.
Couple
But
times, I believe, in '63.
yeah,
At least two.
we know he was actually on a boat. I mean, he got blew up on a fucking boat. So
Yeah. And then was later killed in Cuba, right?
right, killed, doing this shit. So
Right. So when you talk about levels of commitment, this
yeah,
is
our
kind of
levels of sincerity,
right.
movement. A lot of these guys talked a big game, but when it came down to it,
Yeah.
didn't.
They went to the far right wing meetings, right, and tried to raise money. But I'm talking about like Lauren Hall. But did they actually
They never
like
did anything.
put their money where their mouth was? I don't know exactly, but it doesn't seem like so.
Yeah, it seems like they were always scheming, just to get, hit the next con and move. They were
Right.
constantly on the move throughout California, Texas, Louisiana, Florida.
Yeah, it was
Back
always
and forth, back and forth.
the next comp, bro.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty obvious. So let me continue here. Let me see. The men she says, sorry, that she was Leopoldo called her the next day, and in part of the conversation, he told her that Leon was willing to do anything. That he laughed at the Cubans, saying they had no, quote, guts, end quote, and that it would be easy to kill Kennedy after the Bay of Pigs invasion. Mrs. Odio said that when the group first came to the apartment, they asked for her sister, Sarita. That is true. And when they were told that Sarita was not there, but that she was Sylvia, they said, well, you were the one we want, the oldest. You were the one that we want to talk to anyway. Sylvia further said that she did not tell anything to the FBI because they did not ask her these questions. She said she felt that the FBI interviewed her improperly in that they came to her place of employment and asked about her and interviewed her there, and it became a source of embarrassment to her, and later quit her job at the chemical company partially on this account. So we're gonna.
Now, what is not mentioned here is this chemical company. You can check this box off on your checklist as well. I mean, we have Oswald allegedly working at Leslie Welding. When he comes back to Dallas, you have Roscoe White getting blown up at a welding place with chemicals, and she just happens to work at a quote unquote chemical company in Dallas.
Yes.
That we don't know the actual name of, but yeah, go on.
Yes, and if you are following along on YouTube, we are on the middle bottom part of the left hand side. Father McCann insisted that in the latest conversation, again, he's the intermediator here, right? In most of the conversations he had with Sylvia about this matter, she insisted that the man she identified as Oswald had a mustache, or at least he had not shaved recently. That he was, quote, disgusting looking, end quote, because of his dark beard and unkept appearance.
And this was not Oswald ever.
Right. I was going to ask you to check off the box.
I don't even know if he could grow a mustache or a beard, to be honest with you.
Yeah. It was Oswald's was very neat, if you will.
Sassy.
According to all accounts. Could he have not shaved for a couple days? Sure.
We've never seen a picture of him not shaved for a couple of days.
Correct.
And we have pictures of every fucking step of his life, basically.
Right. In response to a question concerning a telephone call Mrs. Odio was alleged to have made to New Orleans in recent months, Father McCann said that she had never called him in New Orleans, but Sylvia had an aunt and uncle in New Orleans. He identified the uncle as, Rob, Dr. Augustine Guitart, a physics professor at Xavier University in New Orleans. He knows that Miss Odio frequently calls Dr. Guitart, as he has been in Guitart's home on occasions when she called. He said Dr. Guitart has engaged in no political activities, of course, among the Cuban groups in New Orleans or Dallas insofar as he knows. So again, you kind of have McCann being the handler here, in my humble opinion.
And look, if you believe, and I'm starting to, that the anti-Castro Cuban exiles were responsible for setting up Oswald to take the fall for this assassination, it would make sense to throw Oswald into the story doing something shady. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And making these little quip remarks. Well, he's crazy enough to shoot a Kennedy or kill Kennedy or something. Whatever Odio had said. And it's not out of the realm of possibility that Guitart would, convince her to say this, right? for the good of the Cuban cause, whatever.
Right, right. And he already stated that Sylvia was concerned about the good of the Cuban cause, right? In the same document.
Yeah, I mean, and this dude, again, somehow makes a friend in Dr. Augustine Guittard, a physics professor at Xavier University. Mind you, McCann is attending Loyola University. So how in the hell does he make, of all people, as a friend in New Orleans, Dr. Augustine Guittard, who happens to be Sylvia Odio's uncle, and he knows he's over there so much talking to this dude that he knows that Sylvia calls him all the time.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. And who happens, as we said earlier, to also be at the hearing of Oswald after the fracas.
Brandon,
Oh,
you're alive.
he's alive.
Thank the good Lord. Thank you, buddy. We appreciate you. And thankfully, you are alive. Welcome back, sir. We missed you the other evening.
Yes, we did. Um, so I just have one last page here, Rob, on this document of McCann. Father McCann was asked whether he had an opinion as to whether Sylvia Odio actually saw Oswald on the night he is alleged to have visited her home with Leopoldo and Cisneros. He replied that he is skeptical of this story. Okay, so even McCann doesn't really believe it, but we've talked about this before. Sylvia did not mention this visit to anyone until after November 22nd, and he has a strong feeling that either because of her mental condition, she now believes the third man in the group was Oswald after seeing his photographs and after feeding the newspaper accounts about him, or that she may, because of her crying need for recognition, be attempting in this way to associate herself with a spectacular event. So, Rob, I'm gonna stop right there. Wish you would have stopped me. She's wants attention in some ways, but now she doesn't want attention.
Well, she doesn't want public attention. She wants to be helpful, but she doesn't want it known that she's being helpful, allegedly.
Okay, but
'Cause-
I believe earlier in the document it said Father McCann said her known desire for recognition, but now she doesn't. It doesn't line up for me, if you know what I mean.
yeah, again, I'm with Father McCann here, but basically doubting that this thing ever happened.
Yeah. Father McCann said, however, that while she was a very mature, intelligent person, this may be a subconscious reaction on her part, and she may not be able to accept or perceive the actual truth herself. Interesting. Father McCann said that Miss Odio. Oh no, let's back here. Father McCann said that Miss Odio had expressed a desire for him to be interviewed, saying that she will be perfectly frank in any interview with the authorities. Again, check with the handler aspect of Father McCann, that she is most anxious to clear the matter up and will cooperate wholeheartedly in any inquiry and give her recollection of the matter to the best of her ability. McCann says that it is his opinion that she will be entirely cooperative, in her interview. In her telephone conversation, Miss Odio told Father McCann that Johnny Juan Martin is a Uruguayan who is supplying arms purchased in some South America countries to some Cuban groups. Ms. Odio is now employed as a secretary at the Kroll Associates in Dallas and has requested that any interviews in connection with this matter be at her home or at some place other than her office. She obviously doesn't want to lose her job. Father McCann appeared to be very cooperative and friendly and expressed a desire to be as helpful as possible and securing the cooperation of Mrs. Odio. Very truly yours, James Rowley of the Secret Service.
Yeah, your friendly informant ass. Out of fan.
Yeah, he just screams informant to me over audio. And I mean, hey, if you're gonna informing on her, you may as well hit it as well, right?
Hey, that's what happens when you're playing both sides of the proverbial fence there, Joseph.
Yeah, well, they're both 26, so it's not like it was anything underboard, you know?
Yeah.
Um, I can't say I wouldn't want to hit Mrs. Odio. Hopefully, my girlfriend isn't listening. Um, but yeah, that is one of the Warren Commission documents. What is it? 24 something something.
One of the other sisters, Erica Odio.
Yeah, we gotta find a picture of her. 2943. Um, but you can take that off the screen for now, and I think I'll throw it back to you for a little bit. I mean, we're gonna have to keep a lot. We have a lot of shit on this. We're gonna have to keep a good amount of this for part two.
Oh,
Kind of
there's
just
plenty. There's plenty of meat on the old bone here, Joe. But
no, I know. I'm just saying, an hour 20 in, I have a lot of meat on my PowerPoint bone as well. No pun intended. So, oh man, shit. Um,
yes, there she is in all her glory.
oof.
Sylvia Odio, little mini
That,
dress.
that's what they call a baddie.
She's got some nice gams, Joe, as they used to say back in the old 40s. She got some handsome gams on her.
Yeah, let me go through scroll through a couple comments before we move on, if you don't mind,
If
because
you,
I haven't checked comments in like an hour. It says an hour, so let me see it, and I'm going through these really quickly, so I'm sorry if I miss anything. I know Turin came in. I know.
I think there was some kind of a. I'll throw Big Bad Josh is here real quick while you're looking. The Pedro
Mhm.
Charles letter sent from Cuba before the assassination also referenced LHO as a crack shot who wanted to shoot JFK. Yeah, I think there was a lot of. Again, I'm starting to think, because of all the shit that went down in New Orleans, that the anti-Castro Cuban exile community, who was legitimately pissed off at Kennedy and had every reason and right to want to end him, and if they had formulated a plan to do so, they found themselves the perfect jackass patsy in Lee Harvey Oswald, right?
Who kind of like walked into the his own trap in a sense.
Right. He made his bed, and they laid him in it, pretty much.
Right. He effed around and kind of found out, I believe, and I believe that's kind of where I'm at. I think that's close to where you're at. And the truth shall set you free. You were here. What's up, Mr. Ashley? What's up? Thank you again, the double B. I'm just trying to make sure I don't miss anyone. Big Bad Josh. He said Odio's father equals communist. Well, is that true? Because allegedly he was protesting Castro.
He might have been communist, but maybe not a fan of the way Castro became communist and siding with the Russians. I don't know.
I don't know either.
I know
But he
Castro
was
had his ass in prison.
yeah. So I'm sure he wasn't communist after that. All right. Um, thank you for that. And yeah, I'll hand it over back to you, sir.
Okay.
And by the way, do you know the Knicks are playing in the
I
NBA?
don't give a shit.
I don't either. I don't care about basketball. A bunch of my friends are Knicks fans, and they're kind of pissing me off, to be honest. Um,
Okay, here we go.
all right, here we go.
All right, here we have a document.
A document.
And this is from October 2nd, 64, when the Warren Commission is investigating still whether or not Lawrence Howard, William Houston Seymour, and Lauren Eugene Hall were in Dallas at Odio's place, right?
Right. And the date is kind of interesting to me because this is what, weeks before the Warren Commission report is released.
No, I think it's already been released.
It's already been released, so they're like kind of covering their ass, like that. This was a big problem, right?
Yeah, they're still investigating this. Okay, so, and by this time, Sylvia Odio had moved to Miami. Check that box off. Now, interestingly enough, after Father McCann is done in New Orleans, he doesn't stay and he doesn't graduate from Loyola. Spoiler alert. He moves from New Orleans to Florida. I believe West Palm Beach to be exact.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here we have, it says, with respect to the photos of William Houston Seymour, photos taken in Key West, Florida, Sheriff's Office, December 4, 62. Another one from San Diego, 59. A bureau teletype from Kansas City, Miami, and San Diego instructed Miami to obtain the photo of Seymour from the Key West Sheriff's Office. Photos of Seymour appeared to be of two different individuals. Gerald Patrick Hemming, PSI. Do you know what that stands for, Joe?
Personal informant.
Something
I
like that.
I missed one letter.
Yeah, something like that. And in parentheses, under development, which means they are still currently working with him. PSI is a paid Scafuza informant, actually.
Wow. Okay.
Out of Miami, who is acquainted with Seymour, was contacted on September 30th, 64. Hemming identified the San Diego police photo as Seymour, and he identified the Key West Sheriff's Office photo as that of Ronald Ponce de Leon. Again, a Leon visited Sylvia Odio, allegedly, right?
Oh yeah. Sure.
So he advised that Ponce de Leon may presently be in the U.S. Army, possibly in Korea.
Yeah. Also a member of Interpen, right?
Yeah, also sitting on the couch in John Martino's house at some point,
I didn't say it.
allegedly.
Yeah, and yes, hi Joshua. I did hear that my alma mater, Valley Forge Military Academy, is closing. It is sad, but it is what it is. They admitted women, which I don't have a problem with, but
And gays and everything else, and there they go.
maybe I was one. I'm just kidding. Okay, sorry for the interruption.
So again, PSI Hemming advised that the American male. All right, so if we back up just a little bit, he basically says Celio Castro was described an American male in Dallas that when Hall and Howard left their trailer of equipment, we're talking about Lester Logue here. Celio Castro said Hall visited an American woman in Dallas who had a 17-year-old daughter. Hemming advised the American male is very probably Lester Logue, a geologist with the firm Logue and Patterson in the Meadows building in Dallas. He said the American woman is probably Gloria Couthart, who lives in the Dorchester house at St. Joseph de Scafuza Street and the corner of a main thoroughfare in Dallas. Can't make this shit up, folks.
Yeah.
Interview of Sylvia Odio on October 1st, 64 was conducted by Special Agents Lehman and James. She was cordial, expressed her desire to cooperate, and although apparently a tense individual, gave no sign of being discomforted by the interview. Further interview of Odio in an effort to resolve her claim of visit by Oswald is not contemplated by Miami and will be conducted only upon request from the Bureau or Dallas. So, In this book, Kennedy Ripples, Marianne Sullivan talks of visiting Father McCann in Florida. Like, she just shows up one day and calls him, "I'm at the airport. You need to come get me." And he's like, I don't think so. And she's like, "No, you're going to come get me. I don't have any place to go. I'm stuck here. You need to come get me." So anyway, they go to his apartment. Some things happen where he pleases her orally, very
Is it?
thoroughly.
Is that in the book?
Oh, it is. It
Okay.
is in the book.
I thought
And
you would have bookmarked that.
après coitus, she proceeds to massage him from head to toe with lotion and suck on his toes until he, if you know what I'm saying, Joe.
Yes, I do.
And then he made the excuse that he needed to go play tennis the next morning. So he left his apartment. He left her in the apartment while he went to play tennis. And she describes in the book how his apartment is basically pretty much barren, like no furniture, very few clothes, no pictures, no personal shit sitting around.
Mattress on the ground.
Yeah,
Maybe. I don't
he
know.
had one,
If you had one.
but then she went in the closet and there was several bags or briefcases or something in the closet, and which she started to fiddle around in, and was finding some documents, including some very young pictures of Sylvia Odio, which really pissed her off.
So young as in too young.
Young as in younger than 26 when he met her. Like
Okay, so
a teenage Sylvia Odio, if you will.
right, which indicates a much longer relationship than.
Possibly. Or she just gave him some older pictures because that's all
I
she
mean, was that a thing back then?
Yeah. I mean, it's not like I could text you a picture of my balls, Joe, or but maybe I took a picture of my balls like 5 years ago and sent it to you.
Can you text me a picture of young Sylvia Odio in her teenage years? I'm kidding, guys. I'm kidding.
Easy, Epstein.
I'm kidding. Just want to put that out there.
What a scafuza.
Yes, I'm going to be at the pearly gates for a few more years or decades now.
All right, let's get back to some document.
Okay.
All right, here we go. All right, this one here is from the HSCA period, 76 to be exact. And this is interview notes with Sylvia Odio when they talk to her, right?
Right.
So it basically gives her history, if you will, according to her. She starts off with, how she figured that it was Oswald, and she passed out. She'd been under mental and marital problems, mental strains, responsibility of caring for her 4 children after her husband deserted her. The next thing she remembered was watching television with her sister and seeing Oswald, and both recognizing him as one of the men who had come to the apartment. We were just so scared because we both recognized him immediately. Blah, 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 blah. And her sister at the time was 14. Okay, so her sister's very young.
Is this Sarita or Anita?
Annie,
Annie.
the one that supposedly saw Oswald as well.
Okay.
So she said she was interviewed by Hosty.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, because it was supposed to be Heitman, right?
Right.
And what's also interesting is that, as we'll get to later, possibly in part 2, but Father McCann would recall that Hosty came to see him in New Orleans and interview him after he had moved there, which is interesting.
It's very interesting. Yes.
Again, she still talks about not recognizing Lawrence Howard, Lauren Hall, or William Seymour. They showed her pictures of him. She recognized none of them. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Pay attention, Corey Hughes. Um, She says, we were standing by my door for 15 minutes, and the light was just coming down upon their faces when I saw him on television. And this guy had a special grin, a kind of funny smile, kept smiling most of the time. He kept trying to be pleasant, but the other guys did all the talking.
Golden hour, as they call it, right?
Well, it's at night. Okay, so it's dark outside. All right, little 14-year-old Annie's probably in the living room, sitting on the couch watching TV, not really paying much attention
Right.
to who's at the doorway. You can't tell me that she paid that much attention and recognized Oswald as soon as they saw him on TV after the assassination. She's likely just going along with her sister, if her sister's saying, oh my God, that's the guy that was at the doorway that night, like 2 months ago. Don't you remember? And she's like, oh yeah, whatever you say. Right? I just don't believe that her sister would remember seeing this person standing in a dark doorway, and she said she talked to him for 15 minutes. I doubt it was that long. Because at the time, remember, Sylvia Odio was trying to go out. She got dressed to go out on the town, and who wants to stand there and talk to these greasy looking Mexicans trying to go out and get her drink on, get her freak on? You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
she's gonna be like hurrying them off. I mean, it doesn't take that long to say I don't have any money. Get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But whatever. So
I have some of the later part of this document. If you don't, I'm sure you did, but
I do.
it gets juicy. Yeah.
Yeah. So she asked how candid she could be with me, and I said I wished she would be totally candid, right? So she said she hasn't told this to anyone except a Mr. Martin Phillips, who came to talk to her about putting her on Dan Rather's CBS Assassination Special TV show. She refused to be on the show, but she did talk to Phillips. She said she told part of this story to Phillips, but never mentioned it to anyone else. Now, here's where it gets juicy. She said after Liebler, that's Wesley Liebler of the Warren Commission, questioned her for the second time that day. The first one started at 9 a.m. and the second one at 6:30 p.m. He asked her out to dinner. Quote, that surprised me, but I was afraid and I went.
I remember this. He tried to hit it too.
We didn't go out alone. We went out with someone who was supposed to be Marina Oswald's lawyer.
Whoa.
Hello, James Herbert Martin lawyer, or James Herbert Martin, or
John Martin Thorne.
Or John Martin Thorne.
Which I think is probably more of the likely suspect. And this is what, April 64?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It would have probably, her and James Herbert had their falling out in February, so I'm guessing it would have been John Martin Thorne, but that is speculation.
So how do you get Wesley Liebler and either John Martin Thorne or James Herbert Martin out to dinner with this chick, Sylvia Odio? We went to the Sheraton to eat dinner. I thought perhaps there was something behind it, and there was a kind of double talk at the table between the lawyer and him, like, yeah, we're going to really nail this thing later, aren't we? I wasn't sure they wanted me to hear the conversation, or they wanted to convince me of something, like going up to a room, or wanted me to volunteer something. Liebler kept threatening me with a lie detector test, even though he knew I was under tremendous stress at the time. But one thing he said, and this has always bothered me, he said to this other gentleman, I don't remember his name again, he said, well, if we do find out that this is a conspiracy, that we'll have orders from Chief Justice Warren to cover this thing up. I asked Liebler said that. She said, yes. I could swear on that.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, she said she thought that maybe it was a bait for her because she had the feeling that they thought she was hiding something more, that she was involved with other Cuban groups, perhaps, or that she knew more than she was saying. That was the feeling that I got by the time that they took me to dinner, that maybe if I had a few drinks and the conversation became very casual, I would go ahead and volunteer
Yeah.
information he thought that I was hiding.
They're trying to get her drunk to put it in her trunk.
She says, "My God, I'm not that drunk." He had a Bloody Mary. Um, but that made me angry, she said. Not only that, he invited me to his room upstairs to see some pictures. I did go. I went to this room or his room. I wanted to see how far a government investigator would go and what they were trying to do to a witness. Of course, nothing happened because I was right in my senses. She'd only had one Bloody Mary. He showed me pictures. He made advances, yes, but I told him he was crazy. He even mentioned that they had seen my picture and that they had even joked about it at the Warren Commission, saying, like, "What a pretty girl you're going to see, Jim," and things like that.
Well, stop you there,
James Herbert Martin.
Jim.
Uh huh.
So, I mean, we talk about Jim's kind of breakup from Marina in February, but he might not have known Odio. Maybe this was kind of a second attempt. Because listen, I mean,
Well,
I'm not
there's a
going to lie.
reason he's with Wesley Liebler. Wesley Lieber had to invite him.
James Herbert Martin wasn't a bad looking guy, and no homo, but he wasn't in 1964. You know what I mean? And he's already had a track record of kind of honey trapping Marina.
Right. And if that was his gig and the Warren Commission knew it, then that's the guy you invite, right?
Right, right.
Very
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. I just wanted to stop you there, sir. Continue. Pray continue.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to.
The fellow who Liebler identified as Marina Oswald's attorney. Now she's probably getting this mixed up. Like not his attorney, but his or her manager.
Manager or
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
shit.
She probably
Yeah,
thought it was his attorney, right? He's
right,
doing attorney shit, right? He's he's controlling
right. And
uh
she's with another attorney. To be fair,
who
legal.
Liebler?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I mean, you could understand why she would have thought that
right.
in a sense, right? I'm speculating here.
So the fellow who Liebler identified as Marina Oswald's attorney had not been at her questioning, but they picked him up on the way to dinner. He left after dinner and did not go up to Liebler's room with him. Showed her all the photographs I had with me, and she could identify only Oswald in any of them, except for one photo, which I believe was taken of individuals coming out of the courtroom following New Orleans concerning the Bernier Oswald fracas. She identified the man in the background as her uncle and said she didn't know her uncle was involved with Bernier. Bullshit. I told her that according to an FBI report, her uncle, Quatart, admitted to being at that court hearing. She said her uncle never mentioned his involvement with Bernier and that she knew he was a fierce anti-communist. Fierce.
Fierce.
She herself, she earlier said, was associated with a more liberal element of Manolo Ray's party and had always been a Kennedy fan. She said she's always been wondering who the other two men who came with Oswald were and blah, 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 blah.
This is Joshua. This is bananas. That is true.
Yeah.
They, and Scott, with maybe the comment of the night so far, they put the ass in assassination.
Yeah. So apparently this Manolo Ray dude was in charge of the Jure movement,
Right.
which is the one that she was interested in, which is allegedly who the group was that these guys came to visit her.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The Cuban community in Dallas wasn't that large, but that they all lived pretty much in the same section of town called Little Havana, if you will.
And yes, this. I mean, read the paragraph above. This reminded me of Johnny Martin, who again
Yeah.
comes into play, and it just kind of showcases how much the Odio maybe sisters were kind of I
Doing.
don't preyed upon. I don't know what the wording is, but they hot, rich, big booty Latinos. Sorry for the
Yeah, he would
reference.
tell Sarita to bring her clothes there to his laundromat, and he wouldn't charge her. And then Sarita brought him around to our house, and we started talking about a lot of things.
No quotas necessary.
He was very clever, and uh, we were very young, and soon he was telling us he could get arms for our movement. I got in contact with Eugenio Cisneros.
Hmm.
He told Manolo Ray that he was coming to Dallas to meet Martin. Martin, she says, always seemed to be broke, yet he always had something blacked out. Um, then we get to Lucille Cannell. She was a Protestant who, again, she was a Quaker who got involved. No, she was a Protestant who got involved in the Catholic Welfare Bureau. She came on very strong with Sylvia as soon as she arrived in Dallas, and in fact had sponsored her trip from Puerto Rico, which means Cannell paid for it.
Right. And again, like you mentioned very early in this episode, gives you kind of Ruth vibes, right?
Yeah. She struck me as the most fantastic, the most kind and considerate person I ever met, said Sylvia. She was just so generous, and I had a tremendous admiration for her. Right? She was very involved with a lot of different groups. She was very intense about the John Birch Society. She was also involved with the Rosicrucians and also with the Mental Health Association in Dallas,
Hmm. Which
also
of
known as
course,
MK Ultra.
right, and yes, and of course would apply to Sylvia. And to weave back to how we started this episode, maybe they identified her as someone that could be possibly manipulated, right?
Yeah. Um,
Not out of the realm of possibility.
she was a very wealthy woman, married to a wealthy man, but divorced him. Hello, Ruth Payne, and is now living in Long Island, named now Lucille Light in Syosset, Long Island.
Oh, New York, huh?
Her
Wow.
husband, Cannell, had a large CPA firm in Dallas, Joe Borelli Cannell, JB Cannell.
Hey, she wanted to give me acid and take advantage of me. I don't know if I'd reject.
Cannell had even gotten her psychiatrist, Dr. Einspruck, who later
Yeah.
went to Philadelphia Naval Hospital. She later visited him there, and he was wearing a uniform. Um, so this Dr. Einspruck guy was Sylvia
Right.
Odio's psychiatrist,
Psychiatrist, right.
but yet he worked for the military. Okay,
You can't make this up, guys, and we're not making it up.
no, you can't make this up.
We wish we had the imagination to do so, but we don't.
Then came this Father McCann fellow. Father McCann and I became very close friends, and he was going through his own crisis in his life. Yes, he was. Uh, Lucille used him, managed him, and handled him.
Yes, Lucille Cannell,
Yeah,
Connell,
and
whatever.
hello, bitch. Likely you as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lucille
Oh,
tried to get us together, and then tried to get us apart, and then got jealous of our relationship in the meantime. People are very complex. She was very moody and enjoyed playing with our lives. This is insaneness, right?
bro, it's there's so many different um, uh, kind of objectives going on here. I don't even know what to make of it, really. I just know it's insanity. And I want to just highlight one comment, Rob. Uh, t- 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 so you're saying Martin was a honey trap? That'd be Juan Martin. I don't know.
No, no.
He could have been like looking for funds or trying to sell arms or trying to make a quick buck. I mean, I'm sure
I
hitting
don't
one of
think
the
she means Juan Martin. I think you said Honey Trap referring to Jim Martin.
Okay, yeah. I'm talking about Johnny Juan Martin in terms of the Odio sisters. I think that's what she's talking about. But I do think James Herb Martin was Honey Trap, yes. But I mean, it's impossible to kind of decipher his objectives, right? Who knows? Selling arms, making a quick buck, getting funds for jury or whatever things he wanted to get done. it's really hard to figure out. So I just wanted to talk about that really quickly. But yes, let's continue the insanity, sir.
All right, now we're talking about Mrs. Cannell again. I asked her about Cannell's report to the FBI regarding General Walker and Colonel Castor. Now we got General Walker in the mix again. Check that box off. Whenever she wanted to find out information, she would take me out to lunch. So it kind of sounds like now in the 70s, Odio is realizing that this Cannell chick was using her and handling her. She says, I wasn't aware at the time she was using me too.
Right.
I knew she was involved with key people in Dallas, and she was continually getting phone calls where she would lock herself in her library when she answered them. She was always mysterious and always careful not to mention information, but she always asked. She did mention General
Right.
Walker. We talked about Walker.
Check another box there
Yep.
after that sentence because that is sus as hell.
I know she was involved with his movement and with the John Birch Society. I think that's why she was involved with the Cubans, because we were very usable people and expendable. Did she ever mention conservatives of the USA? Yes, she did. Uh, you know, it's wild, man. Look, right here. Cannell was not only involved with the Mental Health Association, but very interested in psychology, mind control, and brainwashing. She had a lot of books on the subject.
And this is
What
from Odio.
the fuck? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Just reminding the audience. Yeah,
Yes. She's the female David Ferry.
yeah. I mean, granted, she's not in her early 20s anymore by the HSCA time. I think she kind of realized what was going on here eventually. Might have took her some time, but I think she realized it.
Yeah. Or she's paranoid schizophrenic.
Or that.
But, you know, again, this is the summary report. But originally, the FBI found out about Sylvia Odio from Mrs. Cannell.
Right.
Like, Sylvia didn't come out with this shit. Cannell told the FBI that they needed to go talk to her.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's very weird, man. Very weird.
The original FBI interview with Cannell mentions nothing about the Oswald visit, yet she's the one that tipped him off to go talk to Odio. So they intentionally omitted this out of her FBI interview, which is a little sus.
Right.
Odio denied that she told Cannell she had seen Oswald speak, and in fact had never seen nor heard of Oswald prior to his visit to her apartment. Odio told us that she guessed Cannell reported her to the FBI because she'd been angry with her for breaking off a very close relationship.
She was jealous.
Yep.
She wanted that carpet.
Yep. Hello, Ruth.
God, we're so bad. Sorry, guys.
And again, Cannell was very intense about the John Birch Society and that she was involved with General Walker.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, I specifically asked Cannell whether she told the FBI about her friend and about Jack Ruby's visit to the law office to get power of attorney drawn for his sister.
Whoa, wait. Did you say Ruby?
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. She said, yes, the FBI has that information. I gave it to them at the interview. She is puzzled why it never made it into the Warren report. Shocker. I was rather surprised that they didn't see fit to mention it myself because I thought it was rather pertinent information. Ruby had never had power of attorney drawn for his sister before. Again, this is Cannell's husband that Jack Ruby went to see to allegedly have power of attorney drawn up over Eva. Interesting.
This is nuts. This is bananas, as I think Joshua said.
Yeah. Cannell said, it really surprised me that Sylvia came up with the story about Oswald because the only political meeting I knew she ever attended, aside from her Cuban underground work, was one where General Walker spoke, and that seemed to be the opposite of Oswald politics. So now, Cannell is saying that Sylvia Odio went to see General Walker speak.
Whew.
Now, who else in early October of 63 went to see General Walker speak?
In early 1963? Uh,
Early October.
oh, that would be Michael Paine.
Yeah, and who was with him?
Lee Harvey Oswald.
There you go.
Thank
So,
you.
do we have Odio and the Paynes and Oswald at this General Walker speech all together?
That would be funky.
And then, of course, remember April 10th, allegedly Oswald shot at him, and allegedly Sylvia Odio is wandering around his fucking neighborhood,
Right. Day of the Walker shooting, of course. The Wednesday.
counting butterflies or whatever the fuck she was doing, right?
Are there any butterflies at night?
Hey, you
You
never
never
know.
know. You never know.
But it just, the story just keeps getting weirder and weirder and weirder. And Jack Ruby's getting brought into all this shit. Next thing I know, here comes a guy named Jack Ruby who owns a semi-sleazy nightclub, which I finally visited. So now,
She visited it.
yeah, after much persuasion on his part one evening, and it was pretty sleazy. But Jack was a character out of Ring Lardner who spoke in broken sentences and it was hard to figure out what he was talking about, but I tried to help him with his taxes.
Can you? Do you know what Ring Lardner is? I don't. I'm
It's
young.
probably some old reference to some
Yeah.
shit.
Old movie. Yeah. Got it.
But yeah, man,
This shit's nuts.
it's crazy. It's not likely he would have been in my appointment book because almost never did I have what you would call an appointment with Jack. He just showed up and he always paid cash. I don't believe I ever sent him a bill. His method of bonus in those days was to give me those British razor blades, which were not included here. That was typical of him.
British razor blades.
They shaved very close on the ball sack and
Oh my god.
and would not nick.
Was this before waxing happened?
Apparently so.
Okay. Sorry,
Those
ladies and
big
gentlemen.
British razor blades and a little baby oil does wonders for your ball sack.
We're talking about the Odio shrink, Joshua. Literally. Right?
No, we're not talking about Einspruck right now.
Oh, Einsbruck. Yeah. We might say that for part two.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot to unpack.
She was her handler, but also dabbled in psychotherapy, so that's why. Um, yeah, um, but yeah, man, this is nuts. This whole situation with the audio thing, I don't know what to make of it, bro. I really don't.
Dude, it is a crazy effing story. And it's a lot of it is. I mean, it's a lot.
That's a
It's
lot.
There's so much interspersion here with all these characters, and it's like, what in the hell is going on here, right?
Yeah.
But let's get to. Uh, oh, sorry. Sylvia Odio's psychiatrist. Since you wanted it so badly.
You ask, and you shall receive.
All right. So this is an interview with Burton Einspruck on Monday, April 13th, 1964.
And Rob, before you start,
Yeah.
I have an interview here, and it's like 8 pages on my PowerPoint of interview with Mrs. Connell on the same day, April 16th, 1964. And I think maybe we'll save that for members only because we're almost 2 hours in. But I'll let you continue. But interesting that it's the same day.
Yeah.
And this was by Burke Griffin. a lawyer for the Warren Commission. So,
All
uh,
right.
all right.
Secret Service agent William Patterson and I spoke with Dr. Einspruck at Parkland Hospital, where he fucking worked. Okay. Check that box off. So Einspruck worked at Parkland. Oh, by the way, Father McCann was found at Parkland Hospital, gored out of his brain a week before the assassination, right? So Dr. Einspruck, a psychiatrist, stated that he treated Miss Odio since she was found counting butterflies around General Walker's house in April of 63, and that he saw her on the average of once a week from the beginning of that period until the president was assassinated. He had first indicated to us that the rumors about Miss Odio's love affairs were false. Later, however, he did state the story we had heard about her affair with a Puerto Rican law professor was true. Yeah,
Yeah, that is
that
what was. Yeah, that is what is alleged.
He also stated Miss Odio did date Leonard Marcus, although he did not think the affair was as great as Miss Cannell indicated to us. It should be pointed out that Cannell also believed that Odio is exaggerating her affair with Mr. Marcus. Einspruck further stated he did not believe that the affair with Father McCann was as serious as we were led to believe by Miss Cannell. We did not press him on this matter, however. Of course, a defrocked priest is not going to admit to banging a young Latina.
Right,
Okay? I mean, it wasn't like he got caught with her,
right,
right? Einspruck described Odio as coming from very high social position in Cuba.
true.
He had been educated in Philadelphia, or she had been educated in Philadelphia for 5 years, apparently, and that she had written some stories that had been published in Latin American journals, and that she writes poetry. He described her as a beautiful, brilliant, well-spoken, charming woman. Dr. Einspruck confirmed that the stories of Cannell had given us concerning the anti-Castro activities of Odio's father. He stated that Odio's father had organized an anti-Castro group while in prison. Dr. Einspruck further stated that Miss Odio has 2 brothers, 2 sisters, and 4 children with her in Dallas. She also has a brother, Cesar Odio, in Miami. Miss Odio's ex-husband, Guillermo Jimenez, is believed to be living in Ponce, Puerto Rico. In describing Odio's relationship with Dallas Cubans, Einspruck stated she never really was part of the Cuban community, but her real place was at the very top of the social ladder among American Dallas socialites. Now, this is a giant, uh,
Red flag.
well, it's a giant dichotomy between the fact that she was so broke, right, in 1963 and barely scraping by, and it was, now they're calling her one of a top in the top social ladder among Dallas socialites.
Right.
What the hell?
Doesn't line up.
Doesn't line up. He confirmed with Mr. Cannell's statement that Miss Odio had worked for a while at Neiman Marcus. Oh, by the way, when we were talking about Mr. Marcus before, a guy by the name of Leonard Marcus,
Is the founder.
yeah, founder of Neiman Marcus.
Not the littlest store you've ever heard of.
Yeah, you may have heard of it.
Oh, man.
Man. He stated that her tendency to exaggerate is an emotional type characteristic of many Latin American people, being one of degree rather than fact. He stated that Odio is friendly with 2 Cuban psychiatrists. That's a lot of psychiatrists to be friendly with. He said that in general, Cuban activities in Dallas center around the church, and he did not describe the extent of Odio's participation. Well, we know she participated in the priesthood, for sure. Einspruck stated that he had great faith in Miss Odio's story of having met Lee Harvey Oswald, so he believes her. Okay. He stated that in the course of psychotherapy, so much for doctor-patient privilege, Miss Odio told him that she had seen Oswald at more than one anti-Castro Cuban meeting. One of these meetings was at her house, apparently, he believed, which is crazy. And Miss Odio's sister also saw Oswald at the house, allegedly. Einspruck says that Odio reported to him that Oswald made inflammatory comments about Cuba. The term inflammatory is Einspruck's, and he cannot clearly indicate what it was that Oswald had said. I asked Dr. Einspruck about the blackout that she had on November 22nd. He stated that on occasion, He did not he did not treat Miss Odio. She was handled by a general practitioner, a Dr. Louis Schlepak of Irving, Texas.
Huh.
Dr. Schlepak was a physician for the company at which Miss Odio was then employed. I guess this mysterious chemical company, Joe.
Right. Where she was the secretary. Yeah.
Dr. Einspruch did not know whether or not Oswald's capture was the precipitating factor in the blackout. I asked Einspruch if he believed that Miss Odio would give information which would be harmful to her Cuban friends, and he stated that he did not. Right, so she would not rat out other Cubans. He did not believe that she would rat out other Cubans.
Wait, I asked Dr. Einsbruck if he believed that Miss Odio would give information harmful. Okay, yes. So, yes, it's consistent in terms of not wanting to get the Cuban exiles movement involved, if you will.
Yeah, in pursuing the question of Odio's possible reluctance to give information that would hurt her Cuban friends, I asked Einspruch why it was that Odio might have told Connell about her knowledge of Oswald. He stated that, well, Mrs. Connell at the time was Odio's closest friend in Dallas. He stated, however, that their relationship had begun to cool at the time, and he stated that Sylvia Odio had slept at the Connell house on more than one occasion. If you know.
Yeah, that's what we call a problem.
Yeah, that's a problem. There's a lot of jealousy between Odio and Cannell. Wonder why. He stated that it was his understanding that Cannell had a few affairs of her own. So he's pretty much coming out and saying that they were scissor sisters, if you know what I'm saying.
Yes, I getting that impression. Yes.
He reiterated Miss Odio was at the very top of the Dallas social ladder again, despite being fucking broker than a joker. He emphasized this by stating Odio's closest friends in Dallas now were the John Rogers family. Oh, who are they? Well, they own Texas Instruments, Joe.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. And by the way, I just thought of this. Odio came from a wealthy family, right? Granted, her parents were imprisoned at the time. You could imagine a situation where she's kind of hanging out with these socialites, being as cute as she was.
Yeah,
Even
but
if
he didn't have any money.
yeah, but you don't really need money. You just need the name, and you need, you know what I mean. That's what I'm
Yeah,
kind of saying.
to play the part, you got to look the part. You got to have nice clothes, nice ride, nice shit.
Well,
You can't just
who
show up looking like a bobo, you know what I mean? Like,
who do we know that? How do we know that she didn't have those nice clothes? I mean, granted, I know she had financial issues, but if she came from that wealthy background, she would have known how to play the part.
she may
Is my
have. She may
is
have.
my point. I don't know. I'm again
Or
pure speculation.
Kumail bought the shit for her, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's also true too. Or lent her shit. Who
Yeah.
knows?
Apparently, after her hospitalization at Parkland, after the Kennedy assassination, she went to go stay with the Rogers family that owned Texas Instruments.
That's nuts.
That's not sus at all, is it?
Now, who else in the assassination milieu worked at Texas Instruments? There's one I can't remember.
Wow. Uh, fuck. Ed Hoffman,
Ed Hoffman.
the deaf mute. I don't.
Did he work at Texas
He
Instruments?
did.
Oh, okay. I wasn't like thinking of someone of his ilk. No
Uh,
offense to Ed Hoffman, but I thought no offense. I thought there was someone else. Maybe I'm like thinking of another Texas BSD type of company, but
all
pray
right.
continue. I'm sorry.
Here's the last thing I wanted to hit here. Miss Cannell was interviewed by Secret Service agent William Patterson. She had previously been interviewed by agents of the FBI on November 29th. Mrs. Cannell is an extremely attractive, well dressed, educated, well mannered woman in her late 40s, early 50s. Her husband is a CPA, and their home is in an upper middle class area. We questioned her in detail about the background and reliability of Sylvia Odio. She said that Odio had come to Dallas from Puerto Rico in April or March of 63.
Did you say November 29th?
What?
The first interview with her?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wrote it down. Sorry.
It is Mrs. Cannell's understanding that Sylvia Odio's father was an anti-Batista businessman who had temporarily exiled himself from Cuba. His primary business seemed to be in the transportation industry, although Mrs. Cannell would not elaborate. Odio was an early supporter of Castro, and Cannell states that Mr. Odio entertained Castro on more than one occasion in his home. Apparently, when Mr. Odio realized that Castro was a communist, he deserted Castro and began to organize opposition to him in Cuba. Yeah, so I don't think Amador Odio was a communist.
It doesn't. It doesn't seem like it. Although Castro kind of turned communist. Later, right in '59 or '60 or whatever it was.
Yeah, he may have been friends with. I mean, he says he was friends with Castro before he turned communist.
Right, and sought the protection of the USSR.
And then they put him and his old lady in prison. All of his children, however, were able to escape to Puerto Rico or to the United States. Mrs. Cannell, who was an Episcopalian, came to know Sylvia Odio through the Catholic Cuban Relief Committee of Dallas. Cannell apparently became interested in the work of this committee after she returned from a trip to Spain in early 63 or late 62. Interesting, because Mrs. Cannell had a great interest in mental health and Sylvia was having psychiatric difficulties. Cannell formed...
Spain?
Yeah.
Okay.
So she's traveling abroad.
Right. Another box.
Another box, Ruth. Yes. Mrs. Cannell formed a particularly close attachment to Miss Odio. Apparently, Cannell was at least partially instrumental in Odio's consulting a psychiatrist and obtaining a psychiatric help at Southwest Memorial Hospital in Dallas. Mr. Cannell stated that Sylvia was suffering from a mental disease known as grand hysteria. Mrs. Cannell stated that grand hysteria is common among European women, but is rather rare among Americans. It is for that reason that the Southern Methodist staff at Parkland took a particular interest in Miss Odio. Grand hysteria, according to him, or according to Mrs. Cannell, is a condition characterized by blackouts and fainting spells and other forms of unconsciousness which might last for a period of hours. Cannell stated that in Sylvia's case, apparently the principal cause of this difficulty stemmed from her relationships with men. Cannell described Ms. Odio as attractive, highly intelligent, and gifted, who had a series of affairs. Ms. Odio is 26 years old and divorced. Cannell stated Odio had an affair with a man in Puerto Rico. As a result of this affair, the law professor apparently lost his job and is now working in D.C. Odio also became involved with a Catholic priest,
box.
yeah, in Dallas, who had been working with the Cuban refugees. That's McCann. Partly because of his relationship with Ms. Odio and partly from his own choice, McCann is no longer a member of the clergy. Cannell also stated that Miss Odio was amorously involved with Leonard Marcus, a member of the Neiman Marcus clan. Cannell stated that she believed that Sylvia was inclined to exaggerate many of her amorous relationships and that she had a great need for recognition. However, Mrs. Cannell was pro-Kennedy and a recognized liberal in the community, despite her being buddy-buddy with General Walker. Which,
the far right, right? What's up with that?
Man,
I don't believe that. Yeah,
I don't either.
I don't.
Of course, she's going to say I was pro-Kennedy.
Yeah.
But she throws Odio under the bus. She says Cannell believed that Miss Odio soft-pedaled her anti-Kennedy feelings in her presence. So now she's trying to say that Odio had anti-Kennedy feelings, which who knows?
Right. I mean, I believe that, but being part of Jure, but that doesn't seem out of the realm of possibility.
Sylvia wasn't part of Jure. It's something
right. I'm just saying like family connections to Jure, right?
Yeah, but they're more anti-Castro, not anti-Kennedy.
Right. you're right. I mean, I can't presume to know what she might have been, but it doesn't seem like crazy to me. Um, if she was very pro anti Castro, that she could be some anti Kennedy.
Mm. Mrs. Cannell described John Martin, aka Juan Martin, as sharing Miss Odio's anti Kennedy feelings. Mrs. Cannell stated she met Martin twice at Odio's apartment, described Martin as being 5 foot 7 inches tall and weighing a whopping 130 pounds soaking wet, and as being a close friend of Miss Odio. She
That
stated
is
that
not much.
sometime in '63, Martin drove to Florida where he picked up a car belonging to Sylvia's brother and drove it back to Dallas. Now they're talking about Colonel Castor. She said Colonel Castor's wife is connected with H.L. Hunt. H.L. Hunt is the father of Lamar Hunt, the owner of the Kansas City football team.
Mm-hmm.
Daughter of
They still own it, by the way. The Hunts.
the daughter of H.L. Hunt is a Mrs. Hill who is active in right-wing political activities. Mrs. Cannell described Mrs. Hill as being in her late 40s, early 50s. It's entirely possible Mrs. Hill is the father of Thomas Hill, a former Dallas man in his mid 20s who now lives in Massachusetts and works as an organizer for the John Birch Society. Thomas Hill was a leader in the John Birch Society in Dallas before he went to Belmont. Hill's name appears in Jack Ruby's notebook and may have been taken
Wow.
down when Ruby photographed the impeach Earl Warren sign.
Wow.
Apparently, Thomas Hill was in a restaurant at the same time Jack Ruby and all them guys went out and were taking pictures of the impeach Earl Warren sign, and apparently they were either together there or just happened to be there at the same time, which is
Hmm.
odd.
Odd. Yes.
Yeah. Uh, Hector Escudero's wife works at Neiman Marcus. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, but that's about it for the. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah. And Patty Link, which I believe you, I don't think you glossed over it, but I saw it at the end of that document. I have a little 2 sentence thing on her. Associated with Father McCann, speculated on the disappearance of McCann and Sylvia's frantic efforts to locate the father after the assassination. Page 268. I believe this is some ARB file.
Yeah.
A
Well,
yeah.
Sylvia
So
Odio wasn't the only person frantically looking for Father McCann after the assassination. So was Mary Sullivan.
right. Yep, I have that here too. Um, and I think maybe we'll save that for part two because I have an interesting interview with Miss Connell by Burke Griffin. I think I mentioned it before. Um, in April 13th, the same day as
I
you
just read,
mentioned. Oh yeah, did you read all of it? Okay.
yeah,
Um, okay. Um,
it was the second part of that document I had there. See, 5'7", weighing 130 pounds, blah blah.
yeah. Um, and then I have some more on Johnny Martin on some of Odio's HSCA interview. I believe you read some of that as well. But we have a lot of stuff, Rob. I mean, this is juicy. We have a lot of stuff for part two for members only this coming Wednesday. That's for sure.
Si, senor.
Si, senor.
Si, senor.
So let's check a couple comments maybe before we go, since we're 2 and 16 into this. Uh, what
Yeah.
does this mean? What does this mean? Dr. Einspraw also studied using aura
Urea,
to
otherwise known
ure-
as piss. So,
to lower. Oh, I didn't know that. To lower inter intracranial pressure. Interesting. How do you know that? Nor no war with Iran? I don't know, but I respect it.
And how did the piss get into the brain? Inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah.
Did he snort it? Was it injected?
Joshua says Texas Instruments being brought by Howard. I believe he means Hughes, right? Let me Google that really quickly. We like to figure things out here.
And he says Texas Instruments was a contractor and supplier to the CIA. That's believable. Yeah, I mean,
Howard Hughes did build an aviation and manufacturing empire, but it was eventually acquired by Raytheon. So I'm not sure, although I did misspell a word. So,
Sally says Fergie has no money, but she was married to Prince Andrew, so she will always be a socialite.
well,
Well, I get it, but trust me, somebody's putting money in Fergie's bank account. She ain't broke.
yeah. Let me see what else. I think we have a couple more. Howard Hughes on the
Texas
Texas.
Theater. I don't know about that.
I'm gonna Google it.
I don't know about that. And yeah,
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
I believe this too. Sylvia Odio got a job with Kroll Associates, who was one of these front things for CIA. You know, these advertising firms or lawyer groups or whatever.
Howard Hughes briefly owned the Texas Theater in the Oak Cliff neighborhood of Dallas, Texas during the early 1930s.
Oh, well, that
According,
was
yeah, according to a quick Google search. So
true,
take that. Take
true
that.
but old.
So true and false. But apparently, John Martino served time in Cuban prison with old man Odio. I could tell you that he definitely was in Trisconia and served time with a lot of Scafuzas, and including Sancho Traficante, because I presented this at Lancer, as Rob loves to be reminded of. And
Yeah, this is Joe's long-winded answer, but he doesn't know.
I don't
Research.
know. I don't know if he was exactly imprisoned with Old Man Odio. I I think he might have been in the same prison. I don't know if it was the same. What's it called? Like Kwanzi Hut or some shit like that. I'm not exactly sure about that, but yes, they were imprisoned at the same time. I believe. And I know I just mentioned that, Rob, because I know you love when I bring that up. And yeah, I think that's it. I think I'm gonna mute and try to pretend that I'm leaving to grab the damn
Well,
dog.
I got to play
If
real
that's all
quick.
you have, Rob, I know we have
I
some.
got one more thing. Uh,
Okay, sure.
Actually, I have an interview with Sylvia Odio's vagina. Here it is.
I'm tired, boss.
And that's it for us. Dino, get your fat ass in.
But he said, come to Bourbon Street and I'll show you what I think of the case.
We're gonna get copyrighted after 2 hours 20 minutes.
Not for that church. But... All right, folks, that's it for this one. Definitely tune in for part 2 of this sexy, sadistic, sad story of Sylvia Odio and her vagina and Father McCann and everybody else that banged her and all of this good stuff. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. We hope you enjoyed the show. Be on the lookout for some more random research rambles with Rob, another book review. And again, next Wednesday, part 2 of Odio. There's Ruby.
There's the little cutie, the Ruby.
Boogie.
Hi, Ruby.
All right, folks. We'll see ya very soon.
Yeah,
Peace.
she needs a haircut.
As does Joe.
That's the show.